And it's like I used to tell my kids growing up, don't make the big mistakes. And for guys, the big mistakes are spending more time on your job than you do with your family, having affairs. You know, it's big mistakes don't usually happen. You don't usually make a 90-degree turn right off the road. You make little turns. You like the way somebody smells or the way somebody looks, and you start flirting with them in the office, and then you agree to go have lunch together, just the two. That's how that happens. When we were doing the blue collar tour, they used to laugh at me because at the end of the night, we get through the show and we go back to the hotel. Well, they always, you got Ron with you. They're going to the bar. Come on, Fox, just one beer. And I got no problem with beer. I think this is very cool that they do this. But here's what I know about myself. I know what I came from. I know I like boobs. I can't help it. I think they're really pretty. But I knew what I came from. And I knew if I went in there and I had one beer and we're laughing and cutting up and one beer turned into 2 beers and 2 beers turned into 5 beers and then somebody with boobs sat down next to me, I knew what I was capable of doing. So it wasn't that I was better than them. I knew what I was capable of doing. And I thought, I knew what it felt like as a kid to have a dad that cheated on my mom and ended up leaving early. And I thought, I don't want to do that to my kids. So what I'm going to do is try to be wise, and I'm not going to put myself in that situation. I'm going to go back to my room, I'll order room service, and I'll call my wife. Am I a goody-goody? No, I'm just trying to be wise. I always say wisdom is knowledge plus scars. You learn a lot of this stuff the hard way. So be wise and have a purpose. Like I was trying to think, if I could tell you anything, and it's the hardest lesson in life to learn for a guy, let go. As guys, we want to be in control. And the truth of the matter is, you're not in control of anything. You're not in control of your next breath. You're not in control of the way other people think or feel or act. You're not in control. And the sooner that sinks into you, then life starts being free. It's like dropping a 100-pound bag of sand off your shoulder. When I was running through that pissed off period, if somebody would cut me off in traffic, man, I'd be that far off their bumper, and I'm giving them the salute and screaming and yelling. And I don't know what happened, but at some point in my life, they cut in, and I'm like, whatever, good. You get there 15 seconds before I do. But it was freeing, and I thought, man, the benefit of this is for me. I'd let somebody cut me off in traffic, jack up my whole morning. It's like, no, I'm going to let go. And when I was young, I used to be frustrated by the mystery of God. It's like, okay, if I'm not in control and He's in control, that frustrates me. I want to know the answer to everything. But knowing the answer to everything, think about if you're driving and you're out in the desert and that road is just stretched out 100 miles in front of you and you can see everything for 100 miles and it's just flat. Isn't that boring? Isn't that boring? And God's every morning, and here's one of the coolest gifts God gives us is days. Because He's not bound by time. He doesn't need time, but we are. And so when we screw it up, every 24 hours, we get a new shot at it. I think that is just like one of the coolest gifts. It's like, boy, I really jacked it up yesterday, but today I got another shot at it. And I can get it right. And so I just embrace the mystery of whatever today's got going on. And it's, instead of being a long, flat, straight road, there's hills and there's curves and all. And it's almost like Him whispering, this next part's going to be cool. You're going to love this next part. What are we doing? I don't know. Just hold on. You'll see. It's freeing, man. And that frees you up to do what we were created to do, to glorify God, to love on other people. So I don't have to have the answer to everything. I don't have to know how this is going to end up. He's like, hey, if I love you enough to let them spit in my son's face and nail him on the cross for you, don't you think that I love you enough that I'm going to follow you all the way down this road? And I trust him with that. Yeah, but what about my neck? I got this bad vertebrae. He's like, shh. People always talk about hearing God talk to them. You know what God says to me 95% of the time? Shh. Shh. I got it. All we wanted was a daddy that was going to listen to us, a daddy that was going to love us on our good days and our bad days. And so what I did, and for my earthly father, I know why he acted the way he did, because when he was 5 years old, his dad, it's like the old joke, his dad went out for a pack of cigarettes and never came back. They found him 20 years later in another state, had another family. I mean, just abandoned him. So I'm like, well, hell, no wonder my dad was the way he was. But I freed my dad up from being that dad that had to give me all the things that I wanted. And I will tell you this, if you're a husband out here and you're thinking about leaving or thinking, no matter what you tell your kids, when a parent leaves you, no matter what that parent says in your mind, because this was me, you think I wasn't worth staying for. I felt that for so many years, and even though I'm a funny guy, I love the fact God let me be a funny guy. Underneath, I mean, that far under the surface, there was this anger or this insecurity that, man, I wasn't worth sticking around for. So if you're thinking about leaving, man, think that over. Because as a kid that lived through it hurts. And it's so much about what you're valued. I wanted to do it with enough time, because I know I got a weird job, I got a weird life, but to open it up to questions, and I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you whatever. In the back, yes, sir.
How did not having a father growing up influence your parenting style with your children?
You know, it's the question, if you couldn't hear, how did not having a father influence my parenting style? You know, when my career really started taking off, and it kind of, I mean, it went beyond anything that I ever thought, but I would lease a private plane. I would fly out of PDK, but I would fly home every night. So say on Friday night, if I had a show in Kansas City, I'd fly out there and I'd do the show, do all the meet and greets, sign all the stuff before the show. And as soon as I'd walk off stage, I'd go out the back door and I'd get on that plane and I'd fly home. Land at 2:30 in the morning, and I'd get up and I'd either take my kids to school if it was a school day, or I'd go to their soccer game or basketball or whatever the season was. Because of what happened to me, I always wanted my kids to know that they were the priority. They were worth everything to me. And then that afternoon, I'd go to their soccer game or take them to school or whatever, and then I'd go back at 4 o'clock, and I'd get on the plane again, and I'd fly to Minneapolis and do a show there and fly back home. And I did that for about 15 years. But, you know, you either, when you come from something, I think you either end up like it or you end up 180 to it. And so for me, I mean, it taught me the thing that I needed to do for my kids was the exact opposite of what my dad did for me. So, man, so be valuable. Be valuable in your family. Be that kind of dad that other kids go, man, I wish I had your dad. And I can tell you, as having a dad that was gone, their argument is, well, they want quality time. So to my dad, quality time was to come into town and take us to Six Flags. It's like the redneck, you know, Magic Kingdom. It really was. But kids don't want quality time. See, I would have sacrificed going to Six Flags just to have a dad that was there every night. Kids don't want quality time. Kids want quantity. They want that consistency. Be that dad. Be that husband. I didn't know from my dad that it was possible to love a woman longer than 2 weeks. I've been married for 33 years this year. All those years on the road. I had 8 years in a row, I did 500 shows a year. Never being home. I know you're going, there's 365 days in a year, but that was like a lot of Fridays and Saturdays, 2 or 3 different places. Never cheated on my wife. And part of the blessing of it was I got to see the damage that happens when somebody did that. So, that's how I learned it. But be valuable in your community. And that's all Jesus was telling the Pharisees. And when they go, what about the law? He goes, love God and love on other people. Love on people in your community. That's what I do at the mission. I don't have all the answers. I just care about these guys. I was always doing stuff with kids with cancer. And if I saw somebody homeless, I'd give them $5 to go away, leave my car. See how I'm doing on time. So and that's what I want for you guys, is to tell you, the world tells you, well, if you have money, if you have fame, those are the things that are going to make you happy. The world lies to you, because in the mid-90s, I did a sitcom. I filmed it in LA, and we filmed it right next to Roseanne, who had the #1 show. And at the time, Roseanne was making $1 million a week. $1 million every 5 days. She was the most miserable human being I've ever been around. She had all that fame and all that money, and she'd be in the parking lot trying to run over people. She'd be in the parking lot screaming at people and throwing things at them. And I'm like, okay, the world lied, because fame and money hadn't made her happy. You don't get a practice lap here. Be wise. It's not like NASCAR, where you can go around and get your tires hot for a few times and then you start the race. We get one lap. Every day matters. And that's what life is. It's choices and consequences. Here's what I would encourage you to do, in addition to having a small group. Think about the men in your life that you look at and you think, that's the kind of man I want to be. Might be an uncle, might be a grandfather. I was lucky. I had a really good grandfather. Never told me he loved me, but I know he did, because he took me everywhere he went after my dad left. But you look at the men in your life that you go, that's the kind of man I want to be. And I will be willing to bet you every single one of them was not a self-focused person. I bet every single one of them was. Man, I can't stress that enough. You hear guys talk about, oh, here's my favorite verse, or here's my life verse. Mine must be weird, because I've never heard anybody else say it was theirs. But my favorite verse is Galatians 1:10, and it says, am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying? And I just decided, with how I live my life, with how I do my act, with what projects I say yes or no to, if I do it in a way that God approves of it, then I really don't care what anybody else thinks about it. So that's, if you're in this business, and I've turned, and here's how cool God is. So the first year I quit IBM, when I quit IBM, I was making like 32 grand a year in 1984. First year I went on the road, I found that little, the little pocket calendars where you write all your dates. And I found the first year I was on the road, I did 406 shows, and I made $8,300. I'm like, crap, how do we live on $8,000? So we had no money. And I had a guy approach me one time, and he was doing truck stop tapes, doing little cassette tapes that he sold in truck stops. And he said, I'll give you $2,500 for every 30 minutes you can give me, but the problem is you're too clean. He said, I need you to throw some cuss words and things in there, because I'm selling them to truckers. They don't want it to be clean. It's the only time in my career that I went against my gut, and I did it. I wasn't even good at it, but I was throwing cuss words in there, and I gave the guy 90 minutes. So that was $7,500 for me in one night, which for a guy that made $8,000 the year before, $7,500 for a night, I'm like, I'm rich. The deal was I got no residuals on it, so that's all I ever made off of that was $7,500. That guy ended up selling 11 million truck stop tapes. So if he made $1 a tape, he made 11 million and I made 7,500. And I looked at God and went, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. But I sold out, for $7,500, which today I don't know what I did with it. I don't miss it, but crap, I sold out for that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try not to do that again, Dad. That's what we do when we fall. Yeah, you guys, man, and that's all I want for you. Find a group, find 5 friends. You don't have to call it a Bible study. Call it. So I love to talk about purpose, and one of the things that you learn as you get older is perspective. Like, if I ask you to look out the window and describe to me what Atlanta was like, if you had never been to Atlanta, you would say, well, Atlanta, there's a big water treatment plant, and there's a reservoir, and there's like a couple of old factory buildings, and there's a road, and that's what Atlanta's like. Well, if you had never been anywhere but here, that would be Atlanta to you, because that's the only perspective that you see. So I've been poor. I grew up in Hateville, Georgia with a dirt yard. We didn't know we were poor. We had a great upbringing. I've been rich, so I've seen both sides of that. I've been where nobody knew who I was, and I've been where everybody knew who I was. I've been a newlywed and a new father, and teenagers and grown. And so that's the only advantage that I have is my perspective is maybe different than some of you younger guys. And and that's what the devil does. The devil never makes things look bad. He makes them look good. Wouldn't it be good to have more money, and that way you could leave more to your family and put your kids in the nicest school? And you go, oh yeah, that looks good. I'll start running down here. In the meantime, you never go home, and you never spend time with your wife who feels overburdened, and you don't spend time with your kids who feel ignored, and you were chasing the good and you missed the best. And you don't even have to come. Here's the great news. You don't have to be good at these things. Because not having a dad as a young kid, I remember thinking, I'm never going to do this to my kids. I didn't know I was going to be a comedian that was going to be on the road all the time. But I'm like, my kids are never going to feel like they're not the priority in my life. And so you know what I did? Well, I'll tell you a great story. So I'm a bow hunter. I'm a big outdoor guy. I bow hunt. I like to fish. I look for arrowheads all over the. So Doc has a small group, and I will tell you guys this. If I was going to encourage you to do anything in your life, it would be get in a small group. Create a small group. Tell me a little bit about your small group.
Well, let's see. We look at it as we're a team. So groups are ladies that sit around and drink wine, right? Mm-hmm. A team is headed towards the same goal in mind, and that's so every man is better than when he comes in. We're there, every man supports another man in the circle. And with that, we do life very well together. And any of them can attest to it.
So the goal is kind of to live life to the fullest.
Absolutely. Plus, we like to eat tacos before drinking beer, so That's what we did tonight. Part of it.
I don't know if I want to sit in at the end of your small group or not. For those of you that don't know what a small group is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a small group of guys that meet probably weekly. I've been in 2 of them in my life, one of them for over 20 years, and we would meet Thursday mornings in the back of a barbecue restaurant and have breakfast, same guys every week. But it's what Doc's talking about. You're doing life together. And so, I mean, we would set it up with, it was on biblical principles. And it's like, I know some of you here aren't believers, and that, I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it. It's others focused. They didn't think about what they wanted. They thought about what other people needed. I grew up in Hapeville, down by the airport. I was really lucky. I was the only Chick-fil-A in the world for decades. Had no idea it would become the phenomenon it was. But I was lucky to grow up around Truett Cathy, who started Chick-fil-A. And Truett was one of the wisest men I ever met. And he used to ask me when I was a little kid, he would look at me and he'd go, Jeff, you know how to tell when somebody needs encouragement? I say, no, sir. He goes, if they're breathing. He goes, everybody needs encouragement. It doesn't cost you anything to give it to them. No schooling, no money. And so I learned at an early age, be an encourager. You walk into a place and the homely little girl running the cash registers there go, oh, I love your hair. That's so pretty. Doesn't cost you a thing, made her day. Made her day that somebody saw her, that somebody noticed. And so my whole life, I'm like, crap, Mr. Cathy, that's a great thing. And what it does is it teaches you to see the good in things instead of the bad in things. It is kind of cool that it's guys. I have all girls, all daughters. I will tell you, and I talk about this sometimes on stage, I truly believe from living with all girls, women are smarter than men. And every night when I say that, women start applauding. And I'm like, y'all, it ain't that big a deal. What I'm saying is you're smarter than a creature that every time it takes off its underwear, it tries to pick it up with its toes, flip them in the air, and catch them with its hand. You're smarter than that. I was one that I'd give you a fact of life. You can have a wife with long, beautiful hair, or you can be on time. Fact of life, if your wife hints she might be in the mood, your kids will sense it and won't go to bed for 3 years. Fact of life, women always have more questions than men have answers to. Great example of this. About 8 or 9 months ago, I got a text one day. The text said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. So I go through the house. I find my wife. I said, hey, just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. My wife said, was he driving? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, were Carol and the kids in the car with him? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, were the people in the other car hurt too? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, did they even have insurance? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, what hospital did they take him to? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, you don't know anything. What do you know? I said, no, you need to pray for Tom. I just got a text that he was in a bad wreck. Life, the more kids you have, the worse your parenting becomes. People that only have one child are making homemade baby food out of organic vegetables they're growing in their own backyard. Yeah, by the time that 4th kid rolls around, you're smoking a cigarette while you watch your toddler pull a year-old milk dud out from under the stove and eat it. Pick the cat hair off of it before you put it in your mouth, dummy. Fact of life, if you are trying to get to the bathroom in an emergency situation, it is not a wise idea to unbutton your pants in transit in the effort to save a couple of seconds. Because the muscles that guard the floodgates will interpret the unbuttoning as the signal to abandon their post, and the 2 seconds you save on the button are nullified by the hour and a half you spend mopping and doing laundry. Wish somebody had told me that. Fact of life, the Tyrannosaurus Rex was the meanest of all the dinosaurs because his arms were too short to reach his wiener. That's a medically proven fact. That will make you angry. A lot of people. Fact of life, flying on an airplane makes you gassy. Nobody ever talks about this. Nobody acknowledges this. No, we just take our little roll around suitcase and walk to baggage claim, popping them off like a trail horse. See, when I wrote that, I didn't know if I was the only one that did that or not. And every night it's like, oh, there's other people farting on the way to baggage claim. So on it, that would have been the shortest show in the history of television. I'm not like Alex Trebek. I don't know any of that crap. We had a lady on one night. It was like a second grade grammar question. It was something about an antonym, and she goes, oh, I remember there were homonyms and synonyms and antonyms. She goes, I can't remember the difference in them. Can you use it in a sentence? My antonym came over for Christmas dinner. We'll try it. Try a new one. Oh, look at that. That is awesome. So, how are you? I cannot believe that all you guys would show up here tonight to listen to me, because I am 2 decisions from drywalling. As if I feel like when I look at a group like this, it's like, tell us something wise. And I think people think I'm smarter than I am because I hosted Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader for 6 years. And I tell everybody, if they didn't give me the card with the answers, I ain't holding anything back. That's all I got. But I am honored to be here with you tonight. And I know, I mean, some of you guys here are involved in a church. Some of you guys don't go to church. Some people have been burned by a church. Some people gave up on church. Some people don't believe in any of that. And all of that's cool. If you got burned by a church, which I did very young in life, all I can tell you this is you didn't get burned by God. You got burned by people that screw it up. Christians are the worst representatives for what we believe more than anybody else on the planet. It's like when I was doing the blue collar tour and they got Larry the Cable Guy to be the spokesperson for Nutrisystem. True story. So, and they were going to pay him like this pile of money to lose 50 pounds. And he knew he didn't have the willpower to do it. But he wanted the money. So he hired this trainer to go on the road with us, and the trainer was supposed to make sure that he ate right and that he exercised every day. And Larry would come in my dressing room and go, hey dude, I heard there's pizza in the green room. Can you go talk to my trainer for about 15 minutes and distract him? And I'm like, you're paying the guy to make sure you eat right, and now you want me to distract him so you can go eat pizza. But Christians are terrible at that. And I'll get you to, yes, he beat you by like that. It was so close.
I'm curious, so it sounds, frankly, you've always kind of got to be on, especially with the role, and you're always on the show. And I feel like a lot of guys here also always have to kind of be on, and think they have to be on. What are ways, have you ever, first off, kind of fallen into the mold of the comedian? And what are ways that you haven't? Kind of stay true to yourself?
You know, it's a good question about being on. I mean, because I think as guys, we create, it's very hard for us to be authentic because we create this work guy and this hangout guy. I mean, for me, one of the things I learned about myself, it's like in the mid-90s, I had a sitcom and we filmed between Seinfeld and Roseanne. And at the time, Roseanne, well, they were either number 1 and number 2. Sometimes it was Seinfeld, sometimes it was Roseanne. But at the time, Roseanne was making $1 million an episode, which was $1 million every 5 days. And the world will tell you, world lies to you about everything. World will tell you, hey, fame and money are the things that are going to make you happy. Well, here was a woman that had the number 1 TV show and was making $1 million every 5 days, and she was absolutely miserable. In the parking lots, throwing things at people, screaming at people, getting mad and going home. And so for me, I was like, whoa, the world lied to me. The world lied, and I'm so glad I got to see this. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to live there. I didn't like doing a sitcom, but so when NBC invited us not to return for the fall schedule, it was kind of freeing to me because I knew where I could be more authentic and I didn't have to be that pretend guy. So I moved my family back here. I was like, I like being a comic because I can say what I want to say in the way I want to say it, not have to read somebody else's words. But I think it's really personal. I was always creative. I went to Georgia Tech. I shouldn't have. I just had no money. And I had to go to the closest school to home. But I didn't have that mind of an engineer. I was a storyteller. I wrote and things. I should have gone, and done that. And so I was frustrated. I had a good job, but it wasn't, if God created all of us, that wasn't the thing He created me to do. And so my wife was the only person telling me, you got all this stuff bottled up in you. If you don't do something creative, you're going to lose your mind. So I quit my job at IBM, which was crazy. Nobody does that. I can still remember sitting in my mom's kitchen and my mom looking at me and my mom said, are you on the dope? Not dope, the dope, whatever the dope was. And I'm like, no, ma'am, I want to be a comic. I think I can do it. And she's like, we can get you help. And I'm like, no. 5 years later, I was on Johnny Carson. Same mom is going, you wasted all those years at IBM. Whatever. But I went back from, so you're asking when I was 27 years old, I found the little pocket calendar because I used to write every date down and what I got paid for it. So at 27, I did 406 shows and I made $8,300. And we somehow lived on that for the year, $8,300. So she married me for the money, is obvious. And we were happy as clams. We had no money, but, and I didn't ever think that I would make it. I just knew I liked doing this. And the fact, most comics only get to do it for a few years. And then most people get into stand-up because it's a way to get into TV or movies. And then when they do TV or movies, they don't do stand-up anymore. I just always loved stand-up. My goal was to be on Johnny Carson. That's all I wanted to do. And I remember the first time I was on Johnny, coming home, laying in the bed going, hell, I have no plan. That was it, Things that I learned, and that's why being authentic is so important, because you're not just being authentic with other people. You got to be authentic with yourself. You got to be authentic and tell yourself, hey, this is where I know that I've got a blind spot or I got a weak spot. Because mine was never alcohol. I mean, I don't have anything against it. It doesn't do it for me. I'm just not a big drinker. It's never been drugs. I'm not going to tell you that I haven't tried things way back in the past, but that never did it for me. But like my dad, I have always appreciated a good-looking woman. So like when we were doing the Blue Collar Tour, and this is going on, I've done stand-up for almost 40 years. This has always been the way I do it. But I knew out of the things that get men in trouble, that's where I was vulnerable. The other two, I wasn't going to go out and do heroin. I wasn't going to go out and get blackout drunk. But I like a pretty girl. So when we would do Blue Collar at the end of the night, we'd get through with the show, and the other guys would always go out and hang out at a bar, and they would go, Fox, come on, then let's go have a beer. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to go back to my room and order room service and call home. And it wasn't that I thought having a beer was a bad thing. Not at all. Here's what I knew. I knew Jeff, not being a drinker, if he had one beer and we were having fun and laughing and cutting up, I'd probably have 2 beers. And if I had 2 and we're still laughing and drinking and cutting up, I might have 3 beers. Well, now, Jeff's getting happy, and all it takes is somebody in a low-cut dress that smells good sitting down next to me, and I'm going to start flirting with her. And I'm in a really precarious situation where I can do the same thing that my dad did. And so I'm like, be wise. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to be vulnerable. Because if you break that thing at home, you can glue it back together, but it's never the same. It's never going to be the same. So be wise and don't if your thing is alcohol, don't go out to the bar. It's going to get you in trouble. Be honest with yourself. All of us have weak spots. All of us have blind spots. But be wise enough to avoid those spots. Because here's what happens. Trust, and you know this with your friends, trust is built, it's like a cup of coffee. You build trust one drop at a time. When you meet somebody, you don't know nothing about them, you have no trust. And then you'll go out and you'll do something together and you go, I really like that dude. And you got a couple of drops of trust in there. And then over the months and over the years, that cup fills up one drop at a time and it's full. But when you break trust, it's like breaking the bottom out of that coffee cup. You don't lose it a drop at a time, you lose it all at once. And when you lose it, it never comes back the way it was before. And so for me, yeah, I like a pretty girl, but I didn't want my kids to look at me that way. I didn't want my kids to look at me the way I would look at my dad when he was on marriage number 4 and we'd go out to eat somewhere and he'd start flirting with the waitress and I'm like, holy crap, here we go again. You know, because he may end up leaving me at the restaurant and leaving with her. I mean, that's, he was good. He was really good. But I didn't trust, and I didn't want my kids to ever feel that way about me.
Hey, I'm in Doc's small group, by the way. Hey, has there been a time in your life where you felt like you lost sight or lost vision of your purpose, and how did you get back on track with it?
I think we all do that. You know, we're fallible. I mean, I've had times in my life where I'm like, one of the things I confess to God almost every night when I go to sleep is I hadn't loved you the way I should. I wish I'd have done better at that. But yeah, there's been times in my life, a lot of times. But he's that dad in Luke 15. Bono, lead singer for U2, said the best stories are either about people running away from God or running towards him. And you're one of the two. I used to tell Ron White, I said, you're either living in a state of humility or you're headed towards one. But you know, when you realize you've driven off the road, you know, and that's what a small group does. A small group is almost like guardrails. And you think, well, why are there guardrails on the side of the road? Why? Somebody answer. Why is there guardrails on the side of the road? Keep you from driving down the hill into the ditch and hitting a tree. That's what a small group is. A small group is one of your buddies that sees you flirting with somebody at work and goes, dude, be careful. Be careful. You need those guardrails. And we all screw up. He loves us anyway. You know. And that's what he said at the cross. He goes, you're not just worth something. To me, you're worth everything. And so when we screw up, what do you want your kids to do when they screw up? Is come back to you and go, hey, here's what I did. I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to do it again. That's what he wants from us. Here's what I did. I'm sorry. Try not to do it again. And the word repent, I tell you, this is something cool I learned. You know what the word repent means? I always thought it meant, I'm sorry. You know what repent means? Change the way you think. So when Jesus would say to people, repent, it was like, change the way you think. So I love that word now. You know, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I can change the way I think. I can say, I let it go. I'm not in control. Anybody else? Dang. We done?
One more. We got one more.
All right.
What's up? My name is Sean. I have a quick question for you. In the entertainment business, I'm sure you were probably pulled a lot of different ways, especially challenged a lot in your faith. Would you have any advice for someone like myself who's trying to go into that business, not in the comedian space, but more in like the film industry, of just how to maintain that groundedness?
A small group. But it's like even things like the Ten Commandments, you know, that if you think about it from a father's perspective, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, does that mean he's not going to love you if you do that? No. What it says is, if you do this, you're going to break all trust with your wife and all trust with your kids, and you're going to jack up your life. So that's why it's a rule. That's why it's a guardrail. Don't do this. You're going to jack up your life. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or thy neighbor's possessions. So if you're not satisfied with what you have, if you're looking around, in comparison is the death of contentment. I will tell you that. If you're looking around going, I'm not happy because I don't have what he's got, it's going to jack up your life. You're going to start chasing the wrong things. And so that's why there were these commandments. It was a loving father going, don't do this. You'll screw up your life if you do this. So, but my small group, we went through the birth of kids together. We buried parents together. You know, we might have a lesson plan. We'd pick books of the Bible and we say, okay, over the next month, we're going to go through the book of John. But if some guy came in and he's like, hey guys, I'm really struggling in my marriage, we'd close the lesson, and that's what we do that day. Is other guys would go, hey man, I've been through that. I've struggled in my marriage. And I think, and the reason I ask you why you're here tonight, you wouldn't be here if everything in your life was perfect. I just get that feeling as you're like, man, I've chased everything the world says there is to chase, but I'm still not satisfied. And that is the beauty of a small group, and that is the beauty of faith to me. And here's the thing, for people not of faith, sometimes I think, why wouldn't you be? It's so cool. Because like when the Pharisees, the church leaders, and the synagogue were trying to trip Jesus up, they asked him, okay, out of all the laws, which one's the most important? And he said, the first one is to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second one's like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. He said, every other law hangs from those two. So it's like every guardrail, every law hangs from those two things. Love God and love your neighbor. Love, love. That's why we were created. Because when we love on people, when we let it go, we look like him to other people. And that's the best thing we can do on earth is look. Yeah, I don't know how many shows I've worked on where somebody will come up to me and go, you're different than other people. And I go, well, if you want to know why, I'll have lunch with you. I'm not going to cram it down your throat. But I'm happy to tell you why. Because I've learned to do that. I ain't in control of it. He tells me to trust him in the morning, that I'll have something to eat, the daily bread, so I'll trust you. And here's the cool things, because it's guys, I really think we're all little kids. I love the adventure of it. I love the mystery of it. And I would encourage you to just embrace the mystery of it. And think about like when you're driving, it's boring as hell to drive out west because the road's just real flat and real straight and it all looks the same. And you can see what's coming 100 miles away. But I like driving where you don't know what's over the hill and when you don't know what's around the curve. And that's the way I view life. It's a stinking adventure. Where are we going today, Dad? Where are we going today? You're probably going to put me in a situation I didn't see coming, but it'll probably be real cool if I respond to it the right way. That makes life fun. It's not a burden. It's an adventure. I didn't know what I was going to say to you guys tonight. I'm like, but it's an adventure. I want to go talk to them. Let me just give you the glory for whatever I'm about. Anybody else? Question? Yeah. Fact of life, flying on an airplane makes you gassy. Nobody ever talks about this. Nobody acknowledges it. No, we just all take our roll-around suitcase and walk to baggage claim, popping them off like a trail horse. sorry, God. It was just a joke, all right? Fact of life. Women always have more. I don't know why the bank leaves the vault door wide open, but chains the 25-cent ink pen to the counter. And why does the drive-up banking window have directions written in Braille? They do. Look at it next time you go to the bank. I don't know why the people with the worst breath always stand the closest to you when they talk. They're like, guess what? I don't know. You have a dirty diaper in your mouth? Can I tell you something? All right, but do it quick. I can only hold my breath for 30 seconds. And you always try to offer them a mint or a piece of gum. They never take it. They're like, oh, no thanks. Ooh, I don't like the way those taste. Yeah, I can see where you wouldn't prefer peppermint to that cat turd you're gnawing on right now. So, COVID started in 20, right? 2020. So the summer of 2019, Larry, the cable guy, and I were doing a bunch of dates together that summer. And when you do summer dates, they're almost all outside. You're either doing amphitheaters or country music festivals or, fairs. You're always outside, and you get used to being hot. We did a music festival in Phoenix. It was 112 when we went on stage, and the promoter was trying to make us feel better. He goes, "Come on, fellas, it's a dry heat." I said, "So is the electric chair. It's 112 degrees, So, but I don't sweat very much. I mean, you can say I don't sweat when I'm up here. And so we do this show one night in the South. I'm not even going to say the name of the city because there may be a computer genius here that can get the footage of this. But we did a show one night, and it was not only hot, it was humid as rip. So 10 minutes in the show, I got sweat dripping off my nose onto the stage. 20 minutes in, looks like a wet t-shirt contest. By the end of it, I look like I've been sprayed with a fire hose. I've never sweated this much in my life. And we usually don't eat before a show because it makes you feel kind of sluggish, so we're always hungry, when we get off stage. So I get off stage that night, and I'm in the dressing room, and I'm just pounding Gatorade and water trying to rehydrate. And I hear Larry, the cable guy, coming down the hall, and he slides into my dressing room. He's like, "Hey, let's go eat." And Larry says this a lot. And I usually go because it's fun to watch Larry eat. It's impressive. But I said, "Dude," I said, "not tonight." I said, "I got too hot. I'm not hungry." I said, "I'm just going back to the hotel and going to bed." He's like, "Yeah, right. Come on, let's go eat." I said, "No, I'm not hungry. I got too hot. I'm not kidding with you." He goes, "Are you serious?" He goes, "I cannot wait till you ask me to do something for you." What are you, 9 years old? It's not personal. I got too hot. I'm not hungry. So I got in the van. I got him to take me back to the hotel and got in my room. And probably a lot of y'all make your living on the road. You have your little routine. When I'm on the road, I like it really dark when I sleep. I like it really cold, so I'll turn the thermostat down. But when you're doing stand-up, you're in a different city every night. Every hotel room is different than the day before. So one of my tricks is I always turn the light on in the bathroom, and I'll shut the door. But that way, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I have to go, I can see that light. I know that kind of orients me, and I know where I am. And I usually sleep in my underwear, but this night they're wet. My socks are wet. I've sweated that much, and I'm like, I'm not sleeping in wet underwear, and I told you I only packed 3 pairs, So I just peel them off, and I flop in the bed naked, and I'm out. Well, I wake up about 1:30 in the morning, and I really, really have to pee, probably from all the Gatorade and the water. And any guy over 40 knows what I'm talking about. You have to pee too much to go back to sleep. You can't go back to sleep, but you don't really want to wake up. You just want to get it done and get back in the bed. So I get up and got my eyes half open. I see the light, and I walk in there. Well, as soon as the door closes, I realize I'm in the hall of a really nice hotel without a stitch of clothes on. And you want to wake up in a hurry, forget coffee. This is the way to do it right here. So I'm trying to think through it. Well, Larry's room was right across the hall from mine. And I'm thinking, thank God, I run over there and I'm knocking on the door, and he's not answering, and I can picture him peeking through the keyhole and laughing. But as I'm knocking on the door, I hear the elevator ding. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a 50-50 shot. They're either going to get off and go the other way, or they're going to get off and come towards me. And sure enough, these two... I don't know why you can't ride a bicycle anymore without dressing like Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France. Anybody remember when you could ride a bike wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt? Not anymore. Got to have the uni. And it's not just young athletic people. You got these fat middle-aged guys. They look like the Michelin Man in a wetsuit, and they've got sponsor logos. Who's sponsoring you, Pop? Dunkin' Donuts, all right. Pedal on, Doughboy, pedal on. And actually, she packs light for airline travel as opposed to if we go on vacation in the car. If we go on vacation in the car, there's a fine line between packing and moving. But my wife and daughters, they think it is their job to fill that SUV to the top. And the way they pack would make a man lay on the floor and wet himself. They will bring out a bag with bread and potato chips, put it on the bottom, then put 3 suitcases on top of it. I'm like, let me do this, please. Because men care about, there's an art to packing a car, isn't there? Total art. My daddy could get a house full of furniture into the trunk of a Buick. Hold the jack, hand me the piano. I got this son of a gun, you know. And I'm like my daddy too. Once I get that car packed the way I like it, I don't know why in 2023 we still have jobs that we will call men's jobs or women's jobs. Like if there's a noise in the house in the middle of the night, whose job is it to go check out the noise? It's the man. Let's be, yeah, you never see this. Phyllis. Phyllis, run downstairs, see what that noise was. Hey, bring me back a piece of chicken, okay? Now, if there's a noise in the house in the middle of the night, it is the man checking it out. In his underwear, carrying a baseball bat. Because that is the official uniform of suspicious noises, underpants and a baseball bat. I don't know what we're hoping to find, some guy in the living room in his underwear with a ball. And my dad didn't even need the baseball bat, because my dad wore those gigantic boxer shorts that were always gapped open in the front. That gap was like a taser to a thief. Shut the gap, shut the gap. Here, take my wallet, just shut that gap. You learn that the hard way. Fact of life. Out of all of the cereals, Captain Crunch is the most time intensive. Here's what I'm talking about. You eat it too soon after you poured the milk on, and you will rip the roof of your mouth to shreds. You wait too long after you pour the milk on, and the captain will put a film on your teeth a wire brush can't get rid of. To the hotel open up, and in walks Larry the Cable Guy and our tour manager. And I'm like, thank you, God, here's answered prayer. So they walk across the lobby. Again, I'm naked holding a pizza box. Larry does not say, oh my gosh, buddy, what happened to you? He looked at me, he looked at the pizza box, he goes, I thought you said you wasn't hungry. Just been sitting down here naked eating pepperoni in the lobby, you know. I said, I locked myself out of my room. Well, about that time, here comes the front desk lady back, and now she's got a security guard with her. I said, Larry, I need you to do me a giant favor. I said, tell her who I am so I can get a key and get back in my room. And he looked at me. He looked at her, he goes, I have never seen him before in my entire life. And he got on the elevator and rode up. Thankfully, the security guard started laughing. He recognized both of us. He was one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my life. He got the magic key. He rode up the elevator with me and the pizza boxes, and we went down the hall. He let me in my room. I said, wait here. I went in and got my wallet. I gave him a $100 bill. I said, thank you so much. Please never tell anybody about this. And now I'm telling y'all for free. But I got back in my room, I put my sweatpants on, put a t-shirt on, made sure I had that room key in my pocket, and I waited about 10 minutes, and I walked back across the hall and knock on Larry's door. He opens the door, he's still laughing. He's like, he goes, I told you I couldn't wait until you asked me to do something for you. I said, all right, you got me. I said, are we even? He's like, yeah, we're even. I said, well, just to prove I don't have any hard feelings, I went and got you a beer. Thanks, y'all. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Andre, I love being outdoors. So I'm on a bow hunt in the Northwest Territories of Canada, 30 miles south of the Arctic Circle. And anybody that says we're running out of places for people to live has never been up there, because it's like the moon. There's nothing. I mean, we were staying in this little, we got dropped off by a float plane, and we were staying in this little lean-to down by a lake. But to hunt these caribou, they lived up above the sheep. I didn't know that. I thought, caribou, I've seen them on TV. They go in herds of thousands, and you just hide behind a rock and shoot one. Hell no, they're up there above the sheep. And I'm like asking the guide, where are we going to go? He goes, well, see the top of that mountain? I'm like, oh no, really? He goes, no, the mountain past that. That's where we're going. So you just walk your butt off. So the first day we go up there, and it seems like we walked forever, and we found a few caribou, but none we wanted to shoot. So we stay out there glassing all day, and at night we're walking back. And I mean, we probably walked 10 or 12 miles. You know, you got these backpacks on, you're carrying your bow, and you're dead tired. And as we crest the hill down in the valley, I can see the lake where our lean-to is. And our guide's like, come on, we're going this way to the left. I go, dude, no. I said, we can cut straight down through here and cut the distance in half, and we'll be back at the lean-to. He goes, we could, but that's where all the grizzly bears live, is right down in that valley. And I'm like, why don't we go this way over here? But I learned an important lesson in that is don't guide the guide. Don't guide the guide. He's the reason you paid him to be there. Well, it was the same thing in my life. I didn't have a great father modeled for me, but that didn't mean I couldn't be a great father. What I needed to do was to find guides. And so I would look at guys that I knew that were great dads, and I would just pick their brains. I'm like, tell me, how do you be a great, I don't know. Tell me how you be a great dad. I would find guys that were great husbands. And I'm like, tell me how to do this. You know, every guy in my family has been divorced for the past 7 generations. How do I be a husband that doesn't end up like that? And you know, one of the, and here's the thing for people not to faith, sometimes I think, why wouldn't you be? It's so cool. Because like when the Pharisees, the church leaders, in the synagogue were trying to trip Jesus up, they asked him, okay, out of all the laws, which one's the most important? And he said, the first one is to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second one's like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. He said, every other law hangs from those two. So it's like every guardrail, every law hangs from those two things. Love God and love your neighbor. Love. That's why we were created. Because when we love on people, when we let it go, we look like him to other people. And that's the best thing we can do on earth is look. Yeah, I don't know how many shows I've worked on where somebody will come up to me and go, you're different than other people. And I go, well, if you want to know why, I'll have lunch with you. I'm not going to cram it down your throat, but I'm happy to tell you why. Because I've learned to do that. I ain't in control of it. He tells me to trust him in the morning, that I'll have something to eat, the daily bread, so I'll trust you. And here's the cool things, because it's guys, I really think we're all little kids. I love the adventure of it. I love the mystery of it. And I would encourage you to just embrace the mystery of it. And think about, like, when you're driving, it's boring as hell to drive out west because the road's just real flat and real straight and it all looks the same and you can see what's coming 100 miles away. But I like driving where you don't know what's over the hill and when you don't know what's around the curve. And that's the way I view life. It's a stinking adventure. Where are we going today, Dad? Where are we going today? You're probably going to put me in a situation I didn't see coming, but it'll probably be real cool if I respond to it the right way. That makes life fun. It's not a burden. It's an adventure. I didn't know what I was going to say to you guys tonight. I'm like, but it's an adventure. I want to go talk to them. Let me just give you the glory for whatever I'm about. Anybody else? Question? Yeah. I really think we all want to find what our purpose is because, I mean, it's either one way or the other. We're either, for the people that don't have faith, we're a total accident. And so you believe a body that has a heart that beats billions of times and lungs that breathe and a reproductive system that works is a total fluke. It's a total accident. Well, the chances of that being a total accident, you got a better opportunity of dropping all the parts to a 747 down a flight of stairs, and at the bottom they all come together and they're sealed right, and the plane is fully functional. Which one's more out there? You know, people say to me, well, people of faith are closed-minded. I said, no, you're closed-minded. This makes much more sense than what the hell you believe. I believe there's a creator. And if we're created, we were created with a purpose. It's not just an accident that we're here. I believe every single guy in this room, God looks at him and goes, check this out. Alex right here, that's my masterpiece. I've never made but one Alex before. If God had a refrigerator, your picture would be on the front of it. He's that proud of you. And for you guys that don't know, and I'm sitting across from him going, hell, I would have started smoking crack too. And all of a sudden you realize there, but for the grace of God, I'm in a homeless mission. And what I learned over the years, you know, people tend to view them as drug addicts or alcoholics, and a lot of them are. But that's the symptom. If you go back and find out the reason, so many of them had been molested, so many of them had been abandoned, so many of them had, some horrible trauma had happened to them early in life, and the hurt was so bad they couldn't deal with it, so they numbed. And so I asked the guy, I said, why'd you invite me down here? He goes, I want you to start a small group. There we go again, small group. He said, these guys have chapel a couple of times a week. They've never had a small group. And my dumb ass said yes, which is the only thing we can do for God is say yes when he whispers something to us. I said, and I did say to him, I said, there's almost 7 million people in Atlanta and you can't find anybody more qualified to do this than me, you know. But I said yes, and I had to, when I first started going, I had to stop at Chick-fil-A and buy them chicken biscuits just to get them to come. I had to bribe them. And it started with me and 12 guys, and over the course of a dozen years, it grew to 32 group leaders and almost 300 homeless guys every Tuesday morning. I would get up at 5 o'clock, which was really hard for me because when you're a comic, you're doing a show late, and because I had kids, I would lease a plane. I spent so much money. I would fly home every night, no matter where I was on the road. If I was doing a show in Minnesota, I'd do it. I'd get back on that plane. I'd fly home. I'd land at PDK at 2. I'd go home. I'd get up at 6, and I'd take them to school. I went through like a decade without sleeping. But when I would do the missions on Tuesday morning, I had to get up at 5 because I had to be at Chick-fil-A at 6:30 and wait for them to unlock the door in order to be downtown by 7. So, and I did it forever. And one of my daughters told me not long ago, I never said anything to the kids about it. She said, Dad, she said, do you know what one of the pillars of my faith is? Is how, without saying anything about it, and I know you were dead tired and you got up at 5 o'clock and you would go get those biscuits and you would go down there and do Bible study with those guys. And she said, I just used to think if there's something that good that you felt that need to share it, that I need to delve into it deeper. So that just became one of the, so it's not just what you say. It's because if what you're saying is not what you're doing, it's hollow. It's what you do. You have to be a guy that lives it out, even if you're tired. Somebody over, you're easier to get to. And that's what I want for you guys, is to tell you, you know, the world tells you, well, if you have money, if you have fame, those are the things that are going to make you happy. The world lies to you, because in the mid-'90s, I did a sitcom. I filmed it in L.A., and we filmed it right next to Roseanne, who had the #1 show. And at the time, Roseanne was making $1 million a week. $1 million every 5 days. She was the most miserable human being I've ever been around. She had all that fame and all that money, and she'd be in the parking lot trying to run over people. She'd be in the parking lot screaming at people and throwing things at them. And I'm like, okay, the world lied, because fame and money hadn't made her happy. You don't get a practice lap here. Be wise. It's not like NASCAR, where you can go around and get your tires hot for a few times and then you start the race. We get one lap. Every day matters. And that's what life is. It's choices and consequences. Here's what I would encourage you to do, in addition to having a small group. Think about the men in your life that you look at and you think, that's the kind of man I want to be. Might be an uncle, might be a grandfather. You know, I was lucky. I had a really good grandfather. Never told me he loved me, but I know he did, because he took me everywhere he went after my dad left. But you look at the men in your life that you go, that's the kind of man I want to be. And I will be willing to bet you every single one of them was not a self-focused person. I bet every single one of them was.
And when we're at their house, we always have to sleep on the fold-out couch. Boy, that's a good night's rest, isn't it? Get that one iron bar under your skull, one under your hip bone, and that last one under your ankles. Sleeping on that thick, thick mattress. I'm eating bologna thicker than the mattress on the fold-out couch. And boy, they keep that house a little warm. The inside of their home is about the same temperature as the bottom of a rocket when it's this high off the ground, and they walk around in sweaters. Is anybody else cold? Is it just me? Is anybody else cold? Hell, I'm naked on the tile bathroom floor, gasping for air. Well, I remember when I was in the 4th grade and the firemen visited our school, they told us that's where the last oxygen would be, right there next to the floor. I'm in the bathroom so long, my mother-in-law's beating on the door. Do you need a Correctol? You eat too much cheese.
You know what's sad? We have an entire generation that has no idea how to get dog poop off the bottom of their shoe. But when I was growing up, we played in the yard every day, and every day somebody stepped in dog poop. And when it was your turn, you knew what to do about it. You would hobble over to the curb and scrape the biggest part off on the edge of the curb. Then you would find a puddle and you would swirl the bottom of your shoe around in the puddle. Then limp over to the grass and do the brush stroke back and forth. Then you would find a little bitty piece of stick, and you would sit down on the curb and you would pick it out of the zigzag pattern on the bottom. And you wore those shoes to church the next day. And nobody in that church knew you'd stepped in dog poop.
My next fashion rule, and this is for some of you younger folks out there. If your mother still drives you to school, you ain't no gangster. Pull your pants up. The back pockets of your pants should not be behind your knees. And I don't know why I have to look at the underwear of every teenage boy in America. You know, when I was in school, if other people could see your underwear, it was because two bullies had cornered you on the playground and had yanked it up to your neck. Which is why, as adults, most men won't even consider wearing a thong because those are memories we're trying to repress. And my last fashion rule number 4. Guys, if you have back titties, I didn't know if you would know what I was talking about there. The kind of guys that are walking through the mall and nursing babies are going num, 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 num. Also, if your back's so hairy, you've been shot more than twice with a tranquilizer gun. Say yes to sleeves. I hope Larry is listening to some of this. Fashion rule number 5. And to this day, my mom gets upset if she sees me take a sip out of a beer. But when I was a child, she bought me model airplane glue by the bags full. I'm in my room trying to build models. I'm higher than AC/DC on the opening night of a new tour. Finally get the model put together, then my dad would give us firecrackers to blow them up with. And we knew they were safe because we had to drive across the state line to buy them from a man that had 3 fingers. Not on each hand, total 3 fingers. That's a good firecracker right there. You'll like that one. This guy can't operate a Bic lighter, but he's a demolitions expert. Fact of life, women always have more questions than men have answers to. Great example of this. 6, 7 months ago, I get a text one day. The text says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. I walk into the kitchen where my wife is. I said, hey, I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, was he driving? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were Carol and the kids in the car with him? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were the people in the other car hurt? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. What hospital did they take him to? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, well, you don't know anything. What do you know? I know you need to pray for Tom. I just got a text that said he was in a bad wreck. Nobody needs to look at their face magnified 12 times. At 12 times magnification, a wrinkle looks like an irrigation ditch. A blackhead looks like a manhole cover. And God forbid she find a chin hair. You're not getting a girl out of the room that sees something on her chin that looks like the anchor rope to a battleship. I'm telling you that right now. You know, I've never, ever looked at my face in the 12 times magnification mirror. All right, to be completely honest, a couple of times I did get out of the shower and I paused in front of it just for a minute. Buenos dias, Senor Enchilada Grande. So we leave Dothan and we drive down to my Uncle Wayne's house. Well, there's cars parked all up and down the street, so we have to walk down the street. Well, as we're walking up the driveway, there's a pickup truck in the driveway, and from behind it looks like somebody's passed out against the passenger window. I'm like, what the heck? I walk up next to the truck. In the passenger seat with a seatbelt on is a dead deer. You can't make that up. And the doors are locked. I go in the house, I said, what's the story with the deer in the truck? And my cousin Scott said, well, we hid it on the way over here, but I didn't want to leave it in the bed because I thought somebody might steal it. They think somebody's going to steal a deer at a family wedding. I promised somebody asked if I would tell this story tonight, and I promised I would, so I better do it earlier. I'm not going to remember that I said I would. Kind of getting to that age. Several years ago, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and one night I was hosting a benefit for the Children's Hospital there. Well, at the end of the evening, this couple came walking up to me, and the man said, hey, I bet you done heard every redneck thing. And I'm thinking, well, I've heard a million of them. But I love talking to people. I do. I said, no, go ahead. He said, well, he said, my wife and I decided if we ever had the chance to meet you, that we had to tell you about the time we were down at her family's house, and while we were there, her brother got his nipple bitten off by a beaver. I said, you have my attention. Because you really can't walk away from something like that. Of course, you have to say, how did that happen? Well, they were happy to explain it. Apparently, his brother-in-law and a buddy were driving down the road in their truck, and a beaver ran out in the road, and they accidentally hit it. Well, the beaver went down into the ditch on the side of the road, and they decided they were going down in the ditch to find this thing because they wanted to take it to the taxidermist. Because we all know how pretty they look on a Thanksgiving table just holding that turkey up. So he said his brother-in-law went down the ditch, he found the beaver, he picked it up by the tail, and he said, look at it. It ain't cut up or bloody or nothing. Well, apparently, nothing is the word that brings a beaver back to consciousness. And at that point, the animal lurched out and bit his nipple off. Didn't bite it, bit it off. O-F-F, off. That is a new kind of hurt right there. And it is so rare that I am at a loss for words, but at that moment, the only reply I could think of, I said, I bet that is the only time in history the headline of the paper could include the words beaver and nipple and nobody be offended by it. Greatest food on the planet Earth, Louisiana, is as long as you don't ask a lot of questions. As long as there's a ditch on the side of the road, nobody is going hungry in Louisiana. I've eaten with my wife's relatives. She's like, man, this is great. What is it? They're like, you don't want to know. Put your little more hot sauce on it. Keep chewing that city boy. Come on, give me a clue. Does it swim? Does it fly? Maybe it do and maybe it don't. You just keep eating. I've seen them hit boiling pots with a wooden spoon going, get back in there right now. The shoes take a long time. She spends longer picking shoes for vacation than we spent picking names for our children. I mean, my wife loves shoes. I hope to God she never has to choose between me and her shoes. Because I can see the surgeon going, well, Miss Foxworthy, we can save Jeff's life. But in order to do it, you would have to get rid of all of your shoes. He said he wants to be cremated. I'm gonna need some new shoes for that ceremony. Back to life, the more kids you have, the worse your parenting becomes. People with one kid are making homemade baby food out of organic vegetables they grew in their own garden. By the time the fourth kid comes along, you're drinking a beer while you watch your toddler pull a milk dud out from under the stove and eat it. Fact of life, the length of a woman's nightgown is directly proportional to the length of her husband's nose hairs. I'm a little iffy on that. Fact of life, if you agree to follow somebody in your car going somewhere you have no idea where you're going, that person will run every yellow light and change lanes like somebody on the world's scariest police chases. Rule number 5. It is okay to wear a t-shirt with nothing written on it. I don't know what it is about rednecks. We never have to write a resume because you can learn everything you want to know about us by reading our clothes. You give me a redneck man's t-shirt drawer, I can tell you what kind of truck he drives, what radio station he listens to, who he roots for in NASCAR, what he likes to hunt, who his favorite college football team is, his philosophy on life, and where he went on vacation the last 21 summers. And you give me his windbreaker, I'll tell you what kind of cigarettes he smokes. Trying to cover up things that smell bad. And men spend billions of dollars on things that just smell bad. You give me and my buddies a bottle of dough-in heat urine, we can entertain ourselves for the weekend. So, your turn. My wife's always asked me, do I smell good? You like the way I smell? I mean, hell, if men have an odor... Generation. And what it was talking about was people like my wife and I that waited until our mid-30s to have kids. It said you end up kind of being an Oreo because you're raising your children at the same time your parents in their advancing age are kind of reverting back to childhood, so you got them on both ends. And I thought about it, and I looked at my wife and said, you know what this means? This means we got 2 that are out of diapers and 2 that are going into them. And as bad as it was with the little ones, I don't think it's going to be any more fun with the big ones. I don't want to be sitting there watching football with my father-in-law going, Ed, don't you lie to me, Ed. But I got to thinking about this. There's a lot of similarities between kids and seniors. Like they both get discount ticket prices at the movie theater. They both have their own special menu in restaurants. You have to worry about both groups taking drugs. Because it's not just kids, seniors get a hold of some good stuff. Last time we were with my in-laws, I mentioned that my sinuses were kind of stopped up, and my mother-in-law said, do you want to stop the sniffles or not feel your head? She goes in her purse, pulls out a Ziploc, looks like it has Skittles in it, takes out a tiny green pill and says, say hello to my little friend. I took that thing, I woke up 2 days later laying in the backyard talking to Elvis. She's at the door going, get up, you baby, I take 4 of those and drive to the grocery store. The kids don't listen to you, the seniors can't hear you. My mother-in-law has a hearing aid that she hardly ever wears because she thinks it doesn't look good. Which, as we all know, is the reason they give you a hearing aid. But you can tell when she's not wearing it because if she doesn't have it in, she talks louder than anybody on the planet. One night, they come to visit around Christmas time. We go to the movies one night. Stand in line at the movie theater, she tapped me on the shoulder and said, don't look now, but the man behind us is cross-eyed as a bat. Which is bad for 2 reasons. 1, you are embarrassed to death. And 2, when somebody says something like that, you gotta look, yeah. Turn around, this guy is glaring at me. Well, he may not have been glaring at me, but he was glaring at somebody. And you know what's funny is it's like in our country, you could be part of a group that you don't even know you're a part of until you see something about it on TV or read something about it somewhere. And one morning I'm reading an article in the paper and it's talking about the Oreo generation. And what it was talking about was people like my wife and I that waited until our mid-30s to have kids. It said you end up kind of being an Oreo because you're raising your children at the same time your parents in their advancing age are kind of reverting back to childhood, so you got them on both ends. And I thought about it, and I looked at my wife and said, you know what this means? This means we got 2 that are out of diapers and 2 that are going into them. And as bad as it was with the little ones, I don't think it's going to be any more fun with the big ones. I don't want to be sitting there watching football with my father-in-law going, Ed, don't you lie to me, Ed. But I got to thinking about this. There's a lot of similarities between kids and seniors. Like they both get discount ticket prices at the movie theater. They both have their own special menu in restaurants. You have to worry about both groups taking drugs. Because it's not just kids, seniors get a hold of some good stuff. Last time we were with my in-laws, I mentioned that my sinuses were kind of stopped up, and my mother-in-law said, do you want to stop the sniffles or not feel your head? She goes in her purse, pulls out a Ziploc, looks like it has Skittles in it, takes out a tiny green pill and says, "Say hello to my little friend." I took that thing, I woke up 2 days later laying in the backyard talking to Elvis. She's at the door going, "Get up, you baby, I take 4 of those and drive to the grocery store." The kids don't listen to you, the seniors can't hear you. My mother-in-law has a hearing aid that she hardly ever wears because she thinks it doesn't look good, which as we all know is the reason they give you a hearing aid. But you can tell when she's not wearing it because if she doesn't have it in, she talks louder than anybody on the planet. One night they come to visit around Christmas time. We go to the movies one night. Stand in line at the movie theater. She tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Don't look now, but the man behind us is cross-eyed as a bat." Which is bad for 2 reasons. 1, you are embarrassed to death. And 2, when somebody says something like that, you gotta look, yeah. Turn around, this guy is glaring at me. Well, he may not have been glaring at me, but he was glaring at somebody.
When the girls were little, I had latches on cabinets to keep them out of the dishwashing detergent. My parents gave my brother and I a chemistry set. And Mom, Joey put ammonium sulfate in my eye. Tell him I said stop! You boys go play with the wood-burning kid. Better yet, go outside, get on the mini bikes and shoot the BB guns. This is a different world. Even the way we treat our kids' pets has totally changed. My daughters had this hamster, little white hamster. His name was Herman. And one day Herman's hair started falling out. A lot. And my wife got very concerned and she said, I think we need to take Herman to the vet. I said, baby, Herman cost $5. Perhaps it's time we let Herman loose out in the woods. Born free. And she started getting mad at me. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, when I was growing up, there was no chance. We had a $5 pet that was going to see the inside of a veterinarian's office. Very few of our pets went to the veterinarian. You know what happened to our pets? They ran away. I remember one time my brother and I found this dog. We brought him home and the dog barked all night long for the first 3 nights we had him. Then on the 4th day, while we were at school, he ran away. We had a cat that started climbing my mother's curtain. She ran away. I remember having goldfish that ran away. But my wife said, oh no, Herman is our pet. He's our responsibility. I'll take him to the vet. And she did. She took the $5 hamster to the vet. And $65 later, Herman's hair is still falling out. Herman looked bad. Herman looked like Edgar Winter on Rogaine. Yeah. And I said, $65? Hon, we could have bought 13 new Hermans for $65. I said, when your medical bills are 13 times what you're worth, either you are really, really cheap or you are really, really sick. I said, put it this way. I said, let's say your grandma went to the doctor and they told her it was going to take $13 million to make her well. I said, you cannot look me in the eye and tell me there's not a chance we'd be calling the kids downstairs going, girls, sit down, we have some bad news. Meemaw has run away. People start to laugh at that one, and then they feel bad about that. Oh, because you picture your grandmother in the woods. Is anybody else cold? dude, by the way. Fact of life, if you wake yourself up with a snore, the first thing you do is look around to see who's laughing at you. Fact of life, when your wife or girlfriend gets tipsy, there is a very fine line between her talking dirty to you and sleeping like a hibernating bear. And by fine line, I mean about half a sip. Oh, you wait till we get home tonight, mister. I'm gonna tear you up. And once she crosses the line, you ain't getting her back. It's like the paramedics putting the paddle on a body with no head. You're wasting your time. Baby, wake up for like 1 minute. 1 minute, please. Fact of life, women always have more questions than men have answers to. Great example of this. 6, 7 months ago, I get a text one day. The text says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. I walk into the kitchen where my wife is. I said, hey, I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, was he driving? I said, I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were Carol and the kids in the car with him? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Were the people in the other car hurt? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. What hospital did they take him to? I don't know. I just got a text that said, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. She said, well, you don't know anything. What do you know? I know you need to pray for Tom. I just got a text said he was in a bad wreck. That's all I got. I ain't holding anything back. That's it. People pointing at each other here. Women have questions. I remember last year we had these friends going through a rough spot in their marriage, so my wife told me she wanted me to go play golf with him to find out what's going on. 8 hours later, I come home, she's waiting. Well, I said, well, we got to the golf course and we went to the driving range first, so we're sitting there hitting balls, and I say to him, I said, so how are things at home? And he said, ugh. That's my report. You didn't ask him anything else? No, we started talking about football after that. She's like, how can men be so emotionally unattached? I said, well, that's just the way we're wired. We can't afford to be emotionally attached. Not the way we talk to each other. This is the way men talk to our friends, the guys we love the most. A guy will be walking down the street, see one of his best friends and say, Mike, how you doing? I love that shirt. Did Elton John have a yard sale? What the hell do you weigh now? About 2 tons? Good God, dude, eat a salad, you bald-headed fat bastard. That's how we talk to our friends. I told my wife, if women talk to their friends the way men talk to our friends, y'all would never get out of bed. It would be fun to watch, so. Phyllis, is that a vein on your leg or a tattoo of the Amazon River? Judy, I love those stretch pants. Did you drop a bag of marbles in the back of them? Yeah, stretch pants are like George Washington. They cannot tell a lie. Fact of life, you'll listen much more closely to a butt dial than you will an actual phone call. When somebody butt dials me, I will stay on the phone like 10 or 15 minutes trying to catch them doing something. It's only paid off one time. I got a buddy named Perk. He's a carpenter. He wears this phone on a clip on his belt, so anytime he puts his hands on his hips, he butt dials somebody. So one day Perk butt dials me, and I don't have anything to do, so I'm just listening to him. And I can hear him walking around, and I hear a door open, and I hear a door close. Well, then I hear a lid go up. Being the mature adult I am, I go running down the hall, I find my wife, I'm like, Perk's peeing, Perk's peeing, Perk's peeing. Put it on speakerphone. Me and my wife sit there and listen to my buddy urinate.
Halfway through it, we heard. My wife starts laughing so hard she wet her pants, which I think is God's way of saying, verily, verily, do not listen to thee that but die ye. Fact of life, you do not want a kidney stone. You may want to fall wiener first in a badger hole, but you do not want a kidney stone. How many people have had a kidney stone? Oh, quite a few. How many people have fallen wiener first in a badger hole? All right, here's how I know you don't want a kidney stone. About 6 months ago, I'm in the tire store, getting new tires for my truck. I'm at the counter paying for them, feel great. All of a sudden, it's like Chuck Norris kicked me in the back. I made a noise. I was like, eh! I didn't say it was a masculine noise. I said it was a noise. About 10 seconds later, it hit me again. I was like, well, Dwayne, the kid that is ringing me up at the cash register, looks at me and says, and I quote, "Hey, I ain't no doctor," which caught me off guard. I mean, it did. Well, I just assumed that he was, and he didn't like wearing his stethoscope while he was changing the tires. He goes, "I ain't no doctor, but I think you got a kidney stone because my brother had one, and that's what he acted like." And it's not that I didn't trust Dwayne's diagnosis, but I got to thinking, you know, Jeff, you have a little money. Why not get a second opinion? So I have a buddy that's a urologist, and I called him. I said, "Dude, I think I might have a kidney stone." He said, "Well, come in, we'll take an x-ray." So they go in and take the x-ray, and he comes out, and he thinks he's a comedian. He's like, "Well, I got good news and bad news." He said, "The good news is you don't have a kidney stone. Bad news is you have 5 of them, and one of them is huge." Well, he then proceeds to give me an anatomy lesson. He said the stones form in the kidneys. He said they don't hurt when they're there. He said, but from the kidneys, they pass through a tiny tube called the ureter down to the bladder. And he said a big stone can be 5 or 6 times wider than the ureter. And the word stone, they need to rename it. It's misleading, because when you hear stone, you think smooth river rock, gently tumbling. A kidney stone looks nothing like that. A kidney stone looks like a ninja Death Star. It's got spikes and claws and blades and hooks, so it's not sliding anywhere. It is cutting through nerves and muscles and blood vessels. And he said passing a big one was the equivalent of trying to get a porcupine to walk backwards through a garden hose. So you could see where there might be some discomfort. And I really thought I knew what pain was before this. I remember when I was about 20, I'm spending the night at a buddy's house, and I got up in the middle of the night to go get a glass of water, and I didn't turn the light on, and I hit my little toe on their coffee table. I broke it 90 degrees sideways, knocked the nail completely off. I laid in the floor and said the F word 148 times in a row. Next to a kidney stone, that made that seem like a bubble bath with Jennifer Aniston. See, and the thing only hurts when it moves. You just never knew when it was going to move. I mean, you'd feel great. You'd be talking to people. People are like, "Jeff, what are you working on?" I'm like, "Well, I was just out in L.A. filming some more of the American Bible Challenge." "Oh, God, oh, Jesus, hold my hand. Help me, Jesus." They're like, "Boy, he takes that show seriously, doesn't he?" But the pain was nuts. I read online doctors that say it's the equivalent of a woman giving birth with no meds. Any women here given birth and had a kidney stone? And both. You've had both. Which one was worse? Giving birth. What about you? Giving birth. Here's my argument as defense attorney for the kidney stone. A year or two after having a baby, a woman will say, "You know what? I'm about ready to have another child." You never hear a man say, "Well, I've about quit puking and crying. I think I'll drink a case of Coca-Cola and see if I can't work up another kidney stone." And when my doctor saw the big one, he immediately started writing me a prescription for Percocet. And I hardly ever take aspirin. I'm like, "Dude, you're wasting your time. I am not taking Percocet." Oh, you skinny mustache, bow-legged boy. When that thing started moving, I was eating Percocet like they were peanut M&Ms. I went from being Dr. Oz to Keith Richards in 3 seconds.
And one night the pain was so bad, I'm telling you, I told my wife, I said, you got to take me to the hospital. The Percocet's not making a dent in this. So she drops me off there at the emergency room, and she goes to park the car, and I walk in, and I walk up to the desk, and the nurse said, so what's wrong with you? And I said, I have a kidney stone. And she kind of laughed. She goes, well, you're going to be waiting a long time tonight, hon. I said, no, ma'am, you don't understand. I said, I am in the worst pain of my life. She said, well, you just feel like you're going to die, but you're not. And I said, boy, you don't have a lot of sympathy, do you? She said, oh, you're looking for sympathy. Baby, that is in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. She said that. I looked it up later. She's right. I mean, it is. But she just hands me the clipboard to fill out. So I go in the waiting room. I sit down next to a guy that's got a knife in his head. He's got a knife sticking in his head. I'm like, oh my God, were you in a fight? He said, no, I have a kidney stone. I did this to myself trying to get to the back there. And sometimes when it would move, it would land in such a way it would block the urine stream, and then that ureter would balloon out, and it was the weirdest feeling because you felt like you were going to wet your pants, but then when you went, holy cow, did it hurt. So half your brain's like, you better go to the bathroom, you're going to embarrass yourself, you're going to wet your pants. And the other half's like, don't do it, it's going to hurt. And the kidney stone was like that Somali pirate in the movie Captain Phillips going, look at me, I am the captain of the ship now. I make the rules. And they had you pee through a strainer. Did they make you pee through a strainer? Because they want to find out what the stone's made of so they can take that out of your diet. So I felt like, you know, at Christmas when you watch the old Rudolph thing, the prospector, Yukon Cornelius. That's what I felt like. Nothing. So y'all, this went on for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, every day I was in this pain. And you know, the thing would lodge and it'd block the urine, then it would move and it would hurt. And then all of a sudden I hit about 4 days where I felt great. And I thought, well, did I miss it in the strainer? Or maybe I passed it? And so I went back to the doctor and they took another x-ray. Well, the thing had lodged right in a bend in the ureter next to the bladder. But because it was lodged, it wasn't moving, so it didn't hurt. And it wasn't blocking the urine stream. And I'm like, hey, let's leave it there till the Lord comes back. But the doctor's looking at the x-ray, he goes, I don't like where that thing is at. He said, I'm going to give you about a week to pass it, and if you don't, we're going to have to go get it. I have a question. When you say go get it, what kind of trip are we talking about there? He said, well, we've got this flexible metal cord that has a retractable claw at the end of it. He said, we'll run that cord up the exit-only ramp, through the bladder. He said, we'll grab that stone and we will drag it out kicking and screaming. He said, once we get it out, we'll put a stent in that claw, go right back in a second time, and insert that stent into the walls of the ureter, which by now, quite honestly, have lost the will to live. He said, we'll leave it in there for 3 or 4 days. We'll go back in a third time, grab that stent, and yank it out. And I am thinking, since they outlawed waterboarding, this has got to be what they are doing to get terrorists to talk. So where's bin Laden? I do not know. All right, well, we're going to get that little metal cord with a claw and see if we can't find a kidney stone. Oh, you sons of the beaches. He is living in Pakistan in a White House on the corner. The gate code is... You will find him upstairs, last bedroom on the left. I'm telling the idea of 3 trips with the claw scared the willy out of me. I'm like, I'll do anything to avoid this. So I read online, they said cranberry juice might help you pass one. I'm guzzling it. I am jumping on the trampoline. I am doing anything to get rid of this stone and avoid the claw. And it must have worked, because a couple of nights later, my wife and I were watching TV. I got up at one point to go to the restroom, and right in the middle of it, I had just real quick, sharp pain. You know, it was like, ugh! Y'all, I looked down, and there is this black, spiky, little pea-sized marble rolling down the inside of the toilet towards the hole. And my mother always says, Jeff, you don't have to tell everything. And I'm like, Mom, there's good money in it, trust me.